Hey everybody, welcome. My name is Matthew. Thank you very much for joining. Today we're going to take a look at Bitcoin miner fees. We're going to see where we are in relation to history and give us some insight in where we could go. And answer the question that I asked in the title, is this time different? Okay, so we just had the halving here, April 20th, 2024, depending on which time zone you were in, April 20th. Huge fee spike, all right? Averaged out to $125, $124 per transaction that day. Okay, we have runes on the back of ordinals, on the back of BRC20. We'll talk about all that. But just to, again, put things in perspective, we just entered the fifth epoch of Bitcoin. Okay, so the first epoch was before the first halving. That was up until 2012. The second was until the second halving. All right. The third was until the third halving, which was 4 years ago. And then we just completed the fourth epoch. Okay. And the fourth epoch ended when we had the fourth halving, which was a couple days ago. I don't have it on the timeline here where we went down basically in half from 900 BTC per day to about 450. This is the new era that we are in. So I don't have that line, but it happened just right here, and you can see the fee spike. Okay, so without looking at any other analysis, let's just see here what happened at the first halving. Let's zoom in. There was indeed some fee pressure. Okay, so this is in USD terms. It's not native to Bitcoin. I know that, but it's just $1 average per transaction, where around the first halving, you were at a penny average Bitcoin transaction fee. And this spiked a year later, about a year later from the first halving to up to 65 cents was the high. Okay. So it took about a year and you had a spike. And let's even zoom in a little bit more so you can see that change. Definitely see a spike here. Okay. From very small numbers to a spike about a year after, and then it fell back down. Higher than it was before, but still it fell back down, 35 cents. Okay. Let's look at the second one. Second halving happened here. We went down from 25 Bitcoins per block to 12.5 Bitcoins per block. Had the halving in July of 2016. About a year later and a little bit more, a fee spike. Now, those that know the Bitcoin price knows that this is on the back of major price action. Okay, the price went up to $20,000 per coin for the first time in December of 2017. But if you look at the daily average fees, we had a big bump here. Okay, so where at the halving it was only about 16 cents, went up to 57, 69, 70 bucks for a couple days, and then fell back down. And what did it look like after it settled down? Still higher than it was before. Okay, so the halving was 18 cents, went to like $1, 60 cents, something like that. All right, let's look at the third halving. Okay, that happened during COVID, May of 2020. All right, and about a year later, big price spikes. 2021 had a double top year. And again, this is just daily average fees per transaction per day. We're at that 56, 60, 70 cents at the halving, which again was kind of an order of magnitude higher each time from prior cycles, all the way up to a number that actually matched the prior top. Okay, you can see these, we'll zoom in here. These fees did match, all right, about 60, 70 bucks, but that was pretty brief, and then we fell back down, okay? But again, that came about a year after the halving. Now we're here right at the fourth halving, entering the fifth epoch, okay? What do we notice that's different? Well, unlike, a little bit here in 2019, before the third halving, before the fourth halving here, we had big spikes about a year ago. Again, ordinals, BRC20, and now the runes craze, which happened precisely during the halving day. We can see that there's been a big uptick in fees to where we were, $2, $3 on average. SegWit has now been fully activated. You had Taproot even activated at this point. Fees were, pretty manageable. But then about a year ago, specifically, you had this spike first here in May, and then and then it settled back down a little bit again. But then, come year end again, price booms, a lot more activity, and the price rises. So we got till today, $124 per transaction per day on average. The latest numbers that I have seen are somewhere about $17 per transaction at the moment. This is as of 2 days ago, as of this recording, April 21st. This data, you see it's come back down immediately from the high, which was 124, April 21st, $33 per transaction. So it's immediately come back down, but I don't know if it's going to be higher. You don't know, nobody knows. But if we look at the trends overall, typically it comes back down from these bumps. But this, we can say, at least for what happens directly at the halving, we usually don't see huge spikes. Okay, we saw a little bit of a spike here in COVID times, up to $6.50, but nothing like happened with the runes craze. Ordinals, inscriptions, BRC20, all that stuff, but specifically the runes that happened on April 20th, 2024. Okay, so it's about $17 at the moment. Transaction fee. Again, the native is actually in Satoshis per byte, which is much different. If you're not familiar with that, it's just a different number. It's not related to this, and that's the native number of Bitcoin. But anyway, mempool.space is a good place to find that. So point is, about a year after each halving, we did have big spikes. Here, about a year before the halving, we had big spikes. Okay, and we have new technology, new ways to get JPEGs into Bitcoin, which excites some people, doesn't excite probably much more people, but this is what's happening. So we're going to see how this goes. Now, one more thing just to close this video. Let's look at trailing 12-month distribution of issuance versus fees. Issuance versus fees. Every block, remember there's new coins that come out. It was 50, then 25, then 12.5, 6.25, which we just finished that epoch. Now we're down to 3.125, okay, per block. And then the rest that miners get for their reward for operating that block, for finding that block, is fees. Okay, so the reward is actually the new coins, and then they accept whatever fees they want to accept into their block. So block reward plus fees. So what I'm showing you in this green line is the percentage of the block reward. Okay, so as it goes down, there are more fees coming into each block. All right, and just to conclude the video, not showing too much, at the moment, this does not seem too much different. Okay, so unlike the daily average transaction cost, which is the green shaded area below, the green line above doesn't look too crazy at the moment. When you zoom out very quickly, macro, big picture, don't think about the next block, don't think about any of that. Just look at trailing 12-month rolling numbers, rolling figures that miners earn. The worst, if I'm going to say it that way, the quote-unquote worst time for Bitcoin, where fees were very expensive in relation to new coins, was about here in January 2018, where it got down to about 80-20, okay, 82-18. All right. It was not nearly that bad in 2021. It only got to about 1090 or 90-10, 90-10, 90 new coins versus 10% fees. And now, even with the last year, we see the dip in the last year, and then the further dip in the last 5-6 months, and it's going to go down much more, to be sure, as we continue on the days here. We're still at 90-10, 90-10, okay, a little bit better than 90-10. So 90% new coins, 10% fee. I would submit to you, pay more attention to this than per day or even per block. Because when you look at the trailing 12-month figures of what miners are actually doing, this is going to give you a better interpretation of the competitive dynamics of mining versus every block. Mining is a competitive business. I'm not in it. you can see here that if we were to presume that crazy fees means it's crazy per Bitcoin, activities and the Bitcoin economy and everything else, yeah, it happens. And certainly we can see if we look at the spikes, we had clearly a huge spike here on April 20th, the biggest spike ever in Bitcoin. But if you put the trailing 12-month component on in dollar terms, and now I'm going to show you in Bitcoin terms in orange, it's not that much different. It's not that crazy. Okay, so what miners can earn, both new coins that are coming into the system, the block reward, and fees that are paid by users to get the transactions into blocks. The ratios are not out of whack. They're not crazy. And to be sure, this will cross at some point, no one knows when, this green and orange line, both of them in dollar terms and in native Bitcoin terms, will go below 50-50 at some point. No one knows when that is, but we're nowhere near that at the moment. So that's all I want to say here about the current fee crisis. There's always a fee crisis in Bitcoin. Zoom out a little bit, pay attention to the miner dynamics as they actually are, and then see if you want to change your decisions or your views of how you use the Bitcoin network. Let me know what you think of this in the comments. Thanks for watching.